And say the first thing that comes to mind, mindfulness. We're all one body in the next reality. We're all one, all one, all one. Yes, I'm sure, I'm sure. So let's be all this. Come on, let's be more, 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 more. Oh, let's be all this. Let's be more, 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 more. Come on, let's be all this, all this. Let's be more, 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 more. Let's be more, more, more. Let's be more, everybody. That's Ricardo Romero right there on the drums, everybody. Let's be all this and more. Thank you so much. Thank you.
She says, listen to him, and then turns off the microphone. I get the image. I've seen this before. Remember, Joanne, you said, I've done this in other centers too. This is not my first rodeo. So that song, I've Got a Mind, is really the point of today's message. It's the point of the 4th chapter of the Science of Mind, which we use as a guiding textbook, if you will, through the majority of the curricula that's been produced teaching this philosophy. I've got a mind, and I can use it however I want. And before I found this philosophy, I used it to the best of my ability to increase my suffering. It's such a sweet thing to embrace, isn't it? Now, I know nobody else here has done this very thing, but the reminder today, and that's all this is a reminder, is that you always use that mind. And Dr. Holmes talked about mind as in the collective, meaning the universal mind, as well as the collective, meaning the cultural mind, as well as the individual mind, and how we as individuals operate within all of that. So, there's jargon that goes along with this teaching, this philosophy. And I do my darndest to avoid using it, and sometimes we have to use it just to quote Dr. Holmes. But more importantly, it's vital, people, that when we read the material, that we read it open each time. That each time we open ourselves to receive more of what that's all about. So this morning, I was rereading chapter 4, How to Use It, and I saw therein everything you need to know about this philosophy and the application of it in that one chapter. I hadn't seen that before. I saw it as a piece of the whole. But in there, he summarizes everything that this teaching offers. That chapter, How to Use It, and a chapter at the end called General Summary are the two chapters that have the most import in the whole 600-page book. So you're going to get the whole enchilada today. And likely, because you're here, I'm preaching to the choir. You see, I find that we are incredibly skilled in avoiding hearing that which we don't want to. We get sick, we have other commitments. We'll even schedule it in advance. Oh, I have a headache planned that day. You know that line. But the same is true with regard to awakening to our greater good and giving up, literally surrendering those things that are in our that we have in our minds and our thinking that keeps us from moving ahead, moving forward. That proverbial glass ceiling is very thick, and we reinforce it unconsciously and sometimes consciously. How many times have you put your fingers in your ears and put your hands over your eyes so that you didn't hear or see something that would shatter your reality? Some realities could use some shattering. So the preacher said, anybody who has some need that needs to be prayed over, come forward and stand here in front of the altar. And so people started lining up. And Leroy decides he wants to as well, and he gets in the line. And each one gets prayed over by the preacher. And finally, it's Leroy's turn, and he approaches the preacher, and the preacher says, so Leroy, what would you like me to pray over for you today? And he said, I'd like for you to pray about my hearing, Reverend. And so the pastor sticks his finger in his ear and puts his other hand on the top of his head and says, yes, and he prays, and he prays, and he prays. He prays a blue streak. You try saying that 10 times real fast. He prays a blue streak over Leroy. And when he finishes, finally, he backs up and says, Leroy, how's your hearing now? He says, well, Reverend, I don't know. It's not until next Wednesday. Sometimes we misunderstand the point. So there's nothing that Leroy asked for that he didn't intend, that he wanted to be prayed about, but the minister, he misunderstood what Leroy wanted. And how many times have we thought we wanted something and found out later that's not what we really wanted? But the bummer is we don't know until we get it. So I have an opinion about all that. It's important that we get stuff, but the value in getting stuff is the finding that we can, and that's it. When we find out that we can have what we want, we can start moving forward in life with a little more sense of certainty, with a little more sense of confidence, with a little greater sense of faith. And as you read, if you dare, read chapter 4, how to use it, you're going to see in there that Holmes sets the stage. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, all philosophies start with a premise. And the premise of this philosophy is God, all one, perfection, wholeness, beauty, truth. All of that lives in the one. And we live in that one too. But it starts with all one. It starts with that perfection, that wholeness. That, if you remember in Christian teachings, the omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. There's no place it's not. It's infinite in every regard. End of story. So that's the same premise of this particular teaching. It has to start with something. And that something has to be bigger than any of us as individuals or even as a collective could possibly get our heads around. Infinite is that in its own nature. So today, how to use it? We use the divine power and intelligence when we do our lives. Right now, you're using it. You used it to get here this morning. You will use it when you leave today, and you will use it in every aspect of every moment of every single day hereafter and probably beyond. I don't know how many of you can report about the after, but probably you will be using it then too. And we prove that it's there and that we can use it through living itself. There's an operative condition that helps us prove this power and intelligence, and that is every time we make a choice, every time we make a decision about something, we prove that we have an effect on the life that we're living. We can change it at any time just by deciding to. So in that chapter 4, the opening statement I'll be leading into in just a moment. But I want to talk about that particular core premise. The original spirit is harmony. It is beauty and truth and everything that goes with ultimate reality. The universe is not divided against itself. Universe, by definition, the word universe, one verse, one song, harmony itself. Everything is in harmony with it because it exists in it. So, we will be talking today about moving in life. We come in unconsciously conscious, meaning aware of the one. And that's the tricky part, is aware of the one. And then we are taught from that first moment, differentiation, comparison. There's calm, warm, quasi-darkness, and then light, noise, disruption, chaos, effort. I can't get this body to work like I want it to. And all those things that we bring to our experience simply by being born. But we started out unconsciously conscious. And we move into unconscious unconsciousness, which means we find out nothing. We're unaware that we're unaware. And if we get sick and tired of being sick and tired in our unawareness, we start becoming conscious of our unawareness. That's called conscious unconsciousness. And when we work with that and start figuring out the laws of the universe and the laws of mind and how society works and how we operate within all of that, and start awakening to how we've defined things, decisions we've made, etc., all the work that we embrace in this particular teaching, we move into conscious consciousness, which is a very high state when we can maintain it. How are you doing with that? And therefore, that's the point of today's talk. I've got a mind. What do I choose to do with it? Page 51.1. As a matter of fact, we only know as much as we can prove by actual demonstration is not the beginning of the quote. There we go. One of the great difficulties in this new order of thought is that we are likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. I've got a mind. Okay, whoop. And what's the nature of that mind? Well, I use it. You're not like the artisan who boasts of 20 years' experience when in fact he has 1 year of experience 20 times. That's not using your mind to evolve or expand. That's using your mind to repeat. It's redundant living. One of the great difficulties is we're likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. As a matter of fact, we only know as much as we can prove by actual demonstration. There is not a thing that you know about life that you haven't done in life. You can theorize about it, but you don't know until you do it. It's one of the things I love about Zen. To know and not to do is not to know, which came out of Taoism preceding it. To know and not to do is not to know. By actual demonstration is how we prove this law, this principle of mind. And it follows that if we believe that it will not work, it really works by appearing to not work. This is one of my favorite quotes in that chapter. It's proving that principle works consistently. So, it follows that if we believe that it will not work, it really works by appearing to not work. When we believe that it cannot and will not, then according to the principle, it does not. But in fact, when it does not, it still does, only it does according to our belief that it will not. Now see, that's perfectly clear, isn't it? When we start realizing that believe it doesn't work, by believing it doesn't work, we reinforce the possibility that it won't work. And when it doesn't work, we say, see, I was right. And it's just using the principle, using this law, this mind, the very mind that we think with, to make it that way for us. However, here's the key. Just because we make it that way for us does not mean that it's that way for everybody. Now, I know it's going to come as a shock. Sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes we're just plain silly. One of Graves' laws is, if you want to move forward faster than slower, learn to laugh at yourself sooner rather than later. And when you can't, call somebody who can. You've seen different versions of that idea. When you find yourself in trouble and thrown in jail, call me, and I'll point and laugh at you. It's that kind of thing. Why would we do something so silly as to put ourselves in a situation where we end up disliking and not enjoying life, and yet we do it, don't we? Some people seem to be masters at it. I was a master at it before I found the teaching and realized what the heck I was doing. Using my own mind against myself. So when it does not, it still does, according to the principle that we believe it won't. That's the bottom line as far as how we use the stuff in a way that we didn't think we wanted to. Now, here's a key that you're going to find in that chapter. Life works by direct affirmation. I want to explain that. Most of us think that an affirmation is a positive statement. What it is a positive declaration. It's an attitude of certainty, certitude that this is the way it is. It won't work with certitude. And so subsequently, life shows up that particular way. We are so clear, so certain that that's the way it is, it shows up for us that way. But in spite of the fact that there are clouds covering our perception of the sun, it doesn't mean the sun's not shining, does it? And the same thing is true about good and possibility and wholeness and prosperity. I know people who have held prosperity at bay most of their lives. And then one day they just stop holding it at bay. And they are astounded that life starts flowing to them in abundance. It's like, what happened? Where was I? It was already there, but they just weren't awake to it. But here's the good news. We can't experience it unless it already exists in us somewhere. That's one of the principles that we can read about in quantum physics. You can't experience anything unless it's already inside of you in some way, even as a concept. I remember in 1973, I first came across the idea, there ain't nobody else out there. That you can't experience anything except that you make up something to experience. That's how the idea of no one can do anything to you really started spreading around, at least America. It's been around other places a lot longer, but we seem to hold it at bay longer. So we can't do anything to each other. We always do it to ourselves. Under the auspices of your name, of other people's names. We keep good away from us, people. If we stopped resisting the good, we have it in our life. Oh, we have to take this particular class, this particular process. We have to follow these steps, the 7 habits of highly successful people, etc., 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 and read and read and read until finally one day we just stop resisting. So it's beautiful about the idea of surrender. Surrender to that beauty that lives at the center of everything. Surrender to that good that lives within the inside of everything. Surrender to the good within ourselves. Surrender to the peace that wants to express itself in our experience. The ease that lives all around us, in us, and as us. When we let it, when we shift into letting. If you have a problem with the word surrender, try the word let. It means the same thing. And when we start using our minds to let more good into our experience, it's the same thing as letting more good into our lives. And that's the whole point of this particular chapter is get that you can. It works by direct affirmation. I affirm. Now, affirmation is kind of a funny thing. Because affirmation can be used, here we go, with willfulness. We were talking in class last week about will. And there is a book written a long time ago called The Right Use of Will. And the right to rightly use will is to just hold our attention on something. Emil Coué did lots of research about it. He was around in the around 1900s doing his work and doing his study about what he called autosuggestion, which later became hypnosis, okay? But what he noticed was he started using his imagination in an affirmative fashion. And I'm going to share his classic Couéism, which came to America and was in newspapers across America. And people like Norman Vincent Peale and Robert Schuller and W. Clement Stone grabbed onto it and started recommending it to the people who they were working with, etc., etc. But Coué said something very vital. He said, when the will and the imagination are in conflict, the imagination will invariably gain the day. What does that mean? My imagination will run over me. And I can say, I'm good. And the more we try to convince ourselves of that, the more it takes over. He says we must move from willfulness, we must move into the subjective experience of life. And we do that in the very same way that the experience we don't want got in place too. So I'm sitting at the computer writing an article, my first year in the ministry actually, when I'm in Las Cruces, New Mexico in my first pulpit. I'm writing this article and all of a sudden this idea comes to my mind. Use that which you wish to dissolve that which you wish to dissolve. Huh? Where'd that come from? Use that which you wish to dissolve that which you wish to dissolve. So if you want to stop thinking a particular way, then use that very thinking to change what you're thinking about. What Coué did, his Couéism, was every day and every way I get better and better. There are multiple ways that this has been said. I'm an active verb guy, as everybody in Foundations knows, and people who've taken classes from me. I like active verbs. I really like to stay away from passive verbs like am, is, are, was, were, be, being, and been. Make that list for yourself. All the to be verbs. I, every day, get better and better. I, every day, get better and better. Now, if we just keep saying that, and there's a buddy of mine who, he's mid to late 70s at this point. And Bob had a really interesting way of looking at life. He read about Coué when he was in his 20s. And he thought, I think I like that. Every day and every way I get better and better. Well, he just started doing that. It became a mantra for him every day, and I get better and better. How you doing today, Bob? Every day I get better. What's going on for you? I don't know, but today it's getting better than it was yesterday. It was like it was an automatic response for him, which makes it a reaction. And how many other times have your reactions been otherwise? Oh, it's Monday, you know. Little things that you can do to help yourself remember. When the cashier at the grocery store, you come up and say, how you doing today? I'm doing great and getting better and better. They're quiet. They're not sure what to say about that. So I like to go up and ask them first, how you doing today? And if they say, good, I say, serves you right. Which makes them think about it. Some don't say anything else. Others say, I like that. So how do you change your thinking so that it becomes normalized, so that it replaces, not overlays, but replaces by simple suggestion, otherwise than you have been thinking up to this point in time? How do you do that? Every day in every way I get better and better. Make it automatic. I've been thinking about how my day gets better and better every single day. And I can take small increments like that, and I think most people can. Instead of saying, I fly space shuttles right now. That's kind of a stretch. It sort of has to be somewhat in our belief system. It's possible that I could be getting every day a little bit better, but right now I don't believe that. So I like, in order to get the idea of what your disbelief is to state it as if some grand, magnificent thing has already happened. It exists right here, right now. And watch the mind go, what are you talking about? Are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? Look at your life. Which it can do very effectively. But every day and every way I get better and better, we literally can embrace right now, can't we? And when it becomes that mantra, that's how to use it consciously, deliberately, constructively. So life or law works through us. It works through our minds. It works through our decisions. It works through what we do every single day. We can't not use it. Have you ever heard anybody say you can't get away from God? I mean, if God is omnipresent, where do you go that that's not there? Same idea with this mind that we teach in this philosophy. And we use it, capital I, it, the way it works, affirmatively, positively. It already works that way, so we're going to be using it that way. And how to use it is by using it consciously, deliberately, in accordance with the original nature of the universe, which is harmony, beauty, wholeness. Life is infinite and everywhere. There's nowhere that harmony, beauty, wholeness does not exist. It prevails there. When we let it, it prevails in our own personal experience in life. So the big question today, 1, how will you use it? Will you use it consciously or unconsciously? Because you're going to use it. Consciously or unconsciously. And will you use it for yourself or against yourself? I want you to really think about that. I'd like for us to encourage each other to think about that and to answer the question. So I came across a quotation that I haven't seen in a long time. So long I'd forgotten it. Edit your life frequently and ruthlessly. It's your masterpiece after all. That's what I want you to leave today with. In what way will you today edit your life as more of a masterpiece than right now you can even imagine? How will you let your life become bigger, better, greater, easier, more abundant, more joy-filled, more love-filled? That's the opportunity in this teaching for you today to choose the life that you would call your masterpiece. Bless you. So let's pray together. So even as the notes in the background express individually and together in harmony, I know that all life expresses the very same way. And in personal lives, I know that that note started as an idea. And putting two notes together became an experiment. And some of them show up harmoniously, and some show up in discord or disharmoniously. And both have an effect. There's the cause and the effect. So right now I speak my word as cause into this law that operates upon every choice, every word, into the next experience. So right now I know for each person here, I know for myself, I know for every person that looks like some other. I know beyond this community itself, throughout Salt Lake City, throughout Utah, and so forth and so on, rippling across the planet, a newfound sense of inner peace. And that peace ripples within me. I breathe upon it. And I see that peace rippling through other people in this room. And each person breathes upon that inner peace. And it grows. It glows. And that life anyone might see in any other demonstrates that that peace glows within that person's life too. So whether it be peace or joy or harmony, or a sense of health and well-being, an experience of prosperity, I now know each chooses, and that law works on it. So whether as one word or many, many words in sequence, I know those words become experiences. So the depth of peace grows, the depth of ease grows, the depth of wholeness expands through every cell. That sense of prosperity, it too evolves and expands in every moment. So knowing that this already exists as a possibility, I let go of these words, this process, and I let it be for myself as for anyone who chooses it. I let it go. I know it as already done because I feel the gratitude welling within me. So together, this center affirms it by saying, and so it is.